First off, thank you, Mr. Zacharias, for coming. It's really a privilege to have you here. This question is just, you have the ability to rationalize through what I believe to be a spiritual experience. So I'm wondering, like, if recently, if you had doubts that you were not able to rationalize through, and if so, how you got through that.
Have I ever had any doubts on how I have worked myself and my reasoning process through them? You know, when you go back to the history of academics and how they've arrived at certainty, you can go back across 5 centuries and you'll see how it started with rationalism, that indubitable certainty, and so mathematics became that where Descartes said the only reason you even knew he existed was because he doubted, therefore he was. So they were looking for rational, indubitable certainty. From rationalism we moved to empiricism, where the verification principle and the scientific worldview, the positivistic theories all took over. On the heels of that came those who struggled with emotional issues and their personal subjectivity. Existentialism took over. So you had rationalism, empiricism, existentialism, and you came into on the verge of the 21st century, postmodernism came over, and basically they didn't believe in any absolutes, that did away with truth, meaning, and certainty. The mistake that was sometimes made along this journey is that in grabbing the finger of one way of truth testing, they thought they grabbed the fist of all of reality. There are rational tests, but so are there empirical tests, so are there existential tests, and so is the whole search for community, which is what postmodernism ultimately led us to. So in taking measures of truth verification, the confluence and convergence of all of these is a critical point at which you have to come. Some things are rationally explained, some things existentially undeniable, others you find empirically verifiable, and you bring all of these to the test. So whenever after I made my Christian journey, after I began my Christian journey and made that commitment to Christ, my own transformation was so dramatic, as was my father's, who was very hostile to my initial response and actually almost marginalized me in the process till he came to become a follower of Christ himself. That I have had so serious, I think, an encounter in that relationship. I can honestly tell you I have never doubted that relationship with Christ or God himself. Have I had questions along the way? Yes. Some very serious questions, and you have to settle a question after debating it. You don't settle it before debating it. You go through. I've read authors, I talk to others, I check this out against with other people's thinking and so forth. When I bring these points of convergence, I find the Christian truth to meet 2 tests of logic: correspondence theory, coherence theory. Individual assertions correspond to reality. The whole system teaching put together brings a coherent worldview. That's the way I see that. Then in life itself, the twin realities of truth and relevance. I find it very relevant in my life every day. My decisions are not made ad hoc. They're made on the basis of a prior commitment that life at its core is sacred. So to answer your question, yes, you will always have questions. You'll always struggle with questions. But as C.S. Lewis would say, you don't go all the way back to the beginning. You take 1 or 2 steps back to see how you deal with that question before you start moving forward. So personally, the doubt has never been a factor, but the question has. Now, I know some people who wrestle with great doubts, and I with great sympathy help them and deal with them because they're trying to struggle mainly with the intellectual component of their faith. Or sometimes experientially they've gone through a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, and they just cannot put this whole story together in the light of the gospel. So you have to deal with the convergence of these points of reference, and at times where the intellectual may be weak, the experiential does carry you through till the intellect catches up with what you are living with and going through.